And today we will finish the Jewish problem, part 4, where we will be exploring the solutions that decay gave to this planetary problem. However, before we start, friends, decay gives us very, very wise advice. He says, today, when we are confronted with world conflicts, instead of being deeply discouraged and have a sense of futility and hopelessness, but what we should be doing is facing them with courage, with truth and understanding, as well as the willingness to speak factually and with simplicity and with love in the effort to expose the truth and clarify the problems which must be solved. The opposing forces of entrenched evil must be rooted before he for whom all men wait, the Christ, can come. So to enable him today to walk among men requires a world which will have in it enough effective workers and spiritually minded people to change the atmosphere of our planet. Then and only then the Christ can and will come. I am not, however, presenting you with an impossibility, he says. This problem is a delicate problem, so we have to face it with courage and to speak factually. In part 2, we learned that the Jews embody the quality of separativeness. If you remember, the Jews are the solar plexus of our planet, of our planetary logos, rather. But under the law, we draw forth from others that which is actually present within ourselves. And to this law, races and nations are no exceptions. So through the interrelation of Jew and Gentile, of Semitic and Aryan, and through the solving of the Jewish problem, will the great heresy of separateness eventually be fought out. And one of the lessons to be learned, not only by humanity, but also at the Jews at this present time, is how few material things are really necessary to life and happiness. The lesson is not yet learnt. It is, however, essentially one of the values to be extracted out of this period of appalling deprivations through which men are every day passing. The evil karma of the Jew today is intended to end his isolation, to bring him to the point of relinquishing material goals, of renouncing a nationality that has a tendency to be somewhat parasitic within the boundaries of other nations, and to express inclusive love instead of separative unhappiness. Though much that has happened to the Jews originated in their past history and their pronounced attitude of separativeness and non-assimilability, and in their emphasis upon material good. Yet, DK tells us, the agents who have brought the evil karma upon them equally incur the retributive aspect of the same law. The situation has now assumed the form of a vicious circle of error and wrongdoing, of retribution and revenge. And in view of this, the time must come when together the nations will confer upon this problem, and together they will cooperate to bring to an end the wrong attitudes on both sides. Not just from the Jews, but from both sides. Neither attitude is justifiable from the angle of the soul. They are both equally wrong. And this is a point of view which the Jew and the anti-Jew must eventually understand, and through understanding bring to an end. The New World Order will be confronted with many problems, and DK listed 4 problems: the racial problem, the economic problem, the problem of government, and the religious problem. Note what he says. These problems will not be solved by the imposition of a solution by means of force, as in the Axis world order. Well, we can say that for both Hamas and the Jews at the moment. They're both trying to resolve the problem through force. But they will be solved by right educational processes and by understanding the objectives of the true world order, which is cooperation, brotherhood, and togetherness. These are the objectives of the New World Order. There must be a definite effort upon the part of the nationals of the country to assimilate the Jews, to intermarry with them, and to refuse to recognize as barriers old habits of thoughts and ancient bad relations. And DK tells us there is neither Jew nor Gentile. There is only humanity. So this is what everyone must understand, whether we are Jew or whether we are a Gentile. Just recognize that we are all brothers. We need to recognize the true brotherhood of men, says DK, based on the one divine life, working through the one soul, and expressing itself through the one humanity. And we must recognize, therefore, of relationship both to the divine life throughout the world and to mankind itself. It is this developing spiritual attitude which will lead to right human relations and eventually world peace. The problem can be solved by intermarriage, we are being told. Release from the present situation will come when the Jew forgets that he's a Jew and becomes in his innermost consciousness an Italian, an American, a British, a German, or a Pole. But this is not so at this time. The Jewish problem will be solved by intermarriage. That of the Negro will not. But then this is a different matter here. This will mean concession and compromise on the part of the Orthodox Jews. Not the concession of expediency, but the concession of conviction. There is no pure race in the world today, for intermarriage, illicit relations, and promiscuity during the past few million years have been so numerous that there exists no pure strain. With very few exceptions, there are no pure races. Tides of immigration, marching armies throughout the centuries, and modern travel has inextricably mixed and fused all the races. So it may therefore be assumed that any attempt to isolate a race or to enforce so-called racial purity is foredoomed to failure. The only solution to this problem is the basic recognition that all men are brothers, that one blood pours through human veins, and that we are all children of the one Father. But DK recognizes that it is inevitable that racial differences, national quarrels, and caste distinctions exist. But it is equally imperative that they disappear. This world is one world. Our world is one world. Humanity is one unit in the evolutionary process, and differences are man-made and engender hatred and separation. Again, Decay says that the masters of the wisdom see neither Jew nor Gentile, but only souls and sons of God. Another solution is the realization of our common origin. Let's see what DK means by that. He tells us that when humanity awakens to the fact of its common origin, and when the three great major strains, that is the three major racial groupings in our modern civilization, are recognized, then we shall see the old hatred of the Jew die out, and he will fuse and blend with the rest of humanity. So what is this common origin that DK is talking about? The three, if you remember in the first session, we talked about the three disciples who revolted against the hierarchy at the time. So here are the three then racial groupings that emanate from these original three. The first one, the Semitic, or races of biblical and modern times. The Arabs, the Afghans, the Moors, and the offshoots and affiliations of those people, including the modern Egyptians. They are that racial grouping descended from the eldest of the three disciples. Then you have the Latin people and their various branches throughout the world, and also the Celtic races. They descended from the second of the three disciples. Then the third racial grouping, made up of the Teutons, the Scandinavians, and the Anglo-Saxons, and I didn't quite know what Teuton was. So Teuton, I found out, was the Germanic people, also called Teutonic peoples. Any of the Indo-European speakers of Germanic languages. This racial grouping are the descendants of the third of the three disciples. So basically, we all come from one of those branches. And we all come from these three disciples. It is significant to remember that one of the greatest sons of God who worked on earth and who epitomized in himself the way and the achievement, Jesus of Nazareth, was a Jew. He reversed all the earlier conditions. He possessed nothing at all. He was the first of our humanity to achieve and was a direct descendant of the eldest of the original three disciples who revolted from the drama of detachment. The Jew embodies in himself the world prodigal son. He is the symbol of the disciple who has not yet learned the lesson of a just sense of values. Christ came to bring an end to the Jewish dispensation, which should have climaxed and passed away as a religion with the movement of the sun out of Aries into Pisces. He therefore presented himself to them as their Messiah, manifesting through the Jewish race. And in the rejection of the Christ as the Messiah, the Jewish race has remained symbolically and practically in the sign Aries, the scapegoat. Had they recognized the Messiah, then they would have moved into the age of Pisces, which is the world's savior. And being the most advanced group at the time, then they would have led humanity on the right path. So they have to pass, again speaking symbolically, into the sign Pisces, the fishes, and recognize their Messiah when he comes again in the sign Aquarius. Otherwise, they will repeat their ancient sin of non-response to the evolutionary process. There was the revelation which the Christ himself gave, summing it up for us in his life of service, in the love which he preached, and in his constant repudiation of theological Judaism, the Sadducees and the Pharisees. This difficulty with Judaism still persists and is symbolized for us in the failure to recognize the Messiah when he came to them in their own country. And decay emphasizes the fact that he came to the whole world and not to the Jews alone. So what do you think DK is hinting? what solution do you think that he's hinting at is Judaism must evolve and recognize Christ or whoever will be coming as their Messiah. But he did say, though, that they have forfeited the opportunity of the Messiah being a Jew. So when Christ comes or returns, he will not be taking a Jewish body. Christ gave us a new commandment. First, there were the revelation of the 10 commandments given through the Jews. And the Christ endeavored to offset and bring to an end the need for the 10 commandments by giving us the 11th commandment. And this, if kept, would entail the keeping of all the others. And his 11th commandment was given by him at the Last Supper. Love one another as I have loved you. So then what should the Jews do? Several things, DK suggests. That they should be rid of fear, being of major importance. Fear of being persecuted, fear of just about everything, but particularly of not being a nation. That they should know and recognize the Christ as the Messiah, and therefore find for themselves that the religion they follow is destructive of many of the finer values. That is also of major importance. And that Orthodox Judaism, along with the other faiths, should realize that there is no desire to make them Christian in the ordinary sense of the word, but that they should all move towards some loving synthesis and eliminate their mutual antagonism and rivalries. So this is equally urgent. And this last statement includes the Christian faiths as well. I was brought up as a Catholic, and that's how we were brought up, that only through Roman Catholicism that we will be saved. So I think if all religions drop this assertion, I think we'll be a lot better off. No more racial segregations, because racial segregation is a form of isolationism and necessarily an aspect of materialism, and is related to the personality of humanity, not to the soul aspect. It's separative in effect and normally feeds pride in the individual and the nation. It runs counter to the true progress of humanity, which must lead increasingly to closer human relations, to human wholeness in the truest sense of the term. It will produce the inevitable recognition of vital human unity, placing no emphasis upon individual nations or races. Remember what he said, one humanity. And what about the Gentile? What about their attitudes? Well, it is also absolutely necessary that the other nations, meet the Jew more than halfway when he arrives at altering, slowly and gradually, his nationalistic orthodoxy. It is essential that they cease from fear and persecution, from hatred, from placing barriers to cooperation. And this growing anti-Semitic feeling in the world is inexcusable in the sight of men, of God and men. So there must be at the same time be a realization by both the Jew and the Gentile of equal responsibility and equal liability for the present world difficulty. So the true solution is the assimilation into nations to become one humanity. So forget about wanting to be in a country of your own, a nation of your own. So the Jews need to lose sight of that. That's what DK is proposing. By their continued emphasis upon material possession, this land, I must have this land. This land is ours. They lose sight of the true solution, which is that symbolically and factually again, they must be assimilated into all the nations and fuse with all the races, thus demonstrating recognition of the one humanity. The solution will come, as DK said, when the races regard the Jewish problem as a humanitarian problem, but also when the Jew does his share of understanding, love, and right action. This he doesn't do yet, speaking racially. He must let go of his own separative tendencies and of his deep sense of persecution. He will do this latter sense of persecution with great facility when he grasps as a race the significance and inevitability of the law of karma. And from a close study of the Old Testament and of the acts and deeds there claimed by him as his racial acts and deeds, conquest, terrorism, and cruelty, realizes that the law is working out and incidentally releasing him for a greater future. There must be at the same time a realization, again he reiterates this, by a realization by the Jew and the Gentile of equal responsibility, of equal liability for the present world difficulty.
Πρέπει να αναγνωριστεί και από τους Εβραίους και από τους μη Εβραίους ίση συμμετοχή στην κατάσταση που υπάρχει σήμερα στον κόσμο. Ορθές ανθρώπινες σχέσεις είναι το κλειδί για το πρόβλημα των Εβραίων.
Anna, could you please turn off your mic? Thank you. So right human relations then is the key to the Jewish problem. Right human relations will come as a mutual recognition of mistakes, by sorrow for wrong action in the past, and by restitution if possible. I'm going to reread this. Right human relations will come by a mutual recognition of mistakes, by sorrow for wrong action in the past, and by restitution if possible. Now, this is great, great advice, if only it would be followed or will be followed. It will come when nations can be educated to appreciate the good qualities of other nations and to comprehend the part they play in the whole picture. It will be developed when the sense of racial superiority is killed, when racial differences, racial quarrels are relegated to the unholy past, and only a future of cooperation and of understanding is actively developed. For our encouragement, let us recognize that the same humanity which has brought about these terrible conditions can also create the new world, the new order, the new way of life. The selfish, wicked past can give way to a future of understanding, of cooperation, of right human relations, and of good. Separativeness must be superseded by unity. The combination of totalitarian aggressors, of allied democracies, and of anxious neutral nations must be changed into a world which is characterized by one endeavor: the establishment or the establishing of those relations which will produce the happiness and peace of the whole, not only of the part. Why our planet and this solar system should have been constituted the nursery for the seeds of separativeness, and why this remnant of humanity, far more advanced than ours, here he's referring to the Jewish race, should have been destined to work out its future on our earth, is hidden in the knowledge of the Lord of Shambhala, and is unattainable knowledge for you, and indeed for many in hierarchy. It is simply a fact to be accepted by you. The halls of initiation, to speak again in symbols, in which the initiate demonstrates his redemptive quality, are the true promised land. The whole story of the Jewish people is based upon a recognition of this fundamental truth. But it is, however, distorted by them into a form of individual and racial possessiveness, owing to the profound materialistic selfishness of the race. They give to the entire eternal hope, which is the hope of all the sons of mind, a material and racial distortion and a purely material objective, the objective of territory. All this, in its turn, founded upon the arrogance, the aggressive nature, and the lack of true perspective, which is characteristics of the Jewish people, in spite of many exceptions. Remember that Capricorn is the sun ruler of the Jews, and it's the sign symbolized by the unicorn, the triumphant initiate. So there's the hope, friends. The unicorn, the symbol of the triumphant initiate. Capricorn gives us the picture of the triumphant initiate, the unicorn of God, the symbol of the unicorn. So here's the hope for all of us. Thank you, friends. His message is loud and clear, isn't it? Do you think that's DK is being simplistic?
No, it's not simplistic. I think it is more like the higher view, and which is always a little bit simpler than when we look down here into the chaos. And I think also, well, being born in Germany, I grew up with structures of my parents and grandparents from the war. And I have had to do with the so-called Jewish Aryan problem within myself my whole life, because it was subconscious. Nobody spoke about it when I was a child.
That's right. That's right.
But there was always this guilt and shame thing with that I grew up, which I didn't know where it came from after I was old enough to understand that it is something national. And choosing to be born in a nation like this, I have to solve it within, right?
That's right.
And there are groups and people trying to solve it on a political level, on a social level. So there are groups working on that, but it's this how do you call it in English? Opfer-Täter. One who suffers and one who does something, so somebody suffers. And there is this other side, the rescuer, because that's also just an outer role, sometimes out of place. Not to solve an outer problem. It ended the war. The savior came in form of an atomic bomb in the war. But the real solution is not that kind of savior. So it's really the overcoming of this kind of duality, right?
That's right. Yes.
No, bad boy, good boy, and these things just don't exist on a higher level.
Yeah.
So I think it's I said it last time. I think it's a problem we all have to solve within.
Absolutely. It's a change of consciousness, isn't it?
Yes, right. And then go to the bigger picture. When we solve it within, we see the bigger picture, and the solution comes when more and more people get it solved within.
That's right.
Because
and
we
this
said
is,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we set it into the field, in the national fields, in the racial fields, and in the humanity field, and much of that is happening right now. So I hope there's much hope right now.
Well, I think that the Jews, because they were so much more advanced than our humanity, know that intuitively, know the promised land. They know that this promised land, because they are longing for it, but it's expressing itself through territory, material territory. But that true promised land is really the soul realm, that realm of love and cooperation and fraternity and brotherhood and all of that This is what they intuitively want and long for.
Yes, you're right. Their music and their traditions, they are full of this longing, yearning for the promised land. And it's actually, they don't feel really that it is in Palestine, because there's still this longing in it.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe this longing leads to aspiration sometime.
Yeah, well, let's hope, yes, it will turn. Actually, only a few days ago, I was reading the news on my computer, and one website came up, One Israel, and there's a group that have recognized Jesus as their Messiah. And I thought, oh my God, this is the first time I've seen this. So maybe there is a movement towards love, towards cooperation, towards right human relations.
Yes, I think a little bit past, there were lots of young student groups coming together from both sides in the Gaza area, and tried to do a lot of things together. But just every time some terror happens, this retribution thing is stirred up again. And
yes,
but they really tried and did things together, cultural things together. So there is in young people, there always has been this movement, but it was terrorized, right?
yes,
And terror can do damage to many good movements.
Yeah. But let's hope that the youth will triumph. If there is enough of them to change the tide. And I think that intermarriage too, if they could, if they live close to one another, if the Arabs and the Jews can intermarry, that will bring a lot of understanding and tolerance as well. Anything else that jumped at you, friends?
Yes, perhaps a question. There was the slide I see down below. The Jews must recognize the Aquarian Messiah, but at the same time, he didn't recognize it in Pisces, so he still has to go through the Pisces process. Did I understand that right?
I think it's what he's saying is symbolically, is not, it's not factually, obviously, because
Mhm.
we've already passed for the past 2000 years, we went through the sign of Pisces.
Yes,
But
right.
but I think what DK meant is that they've got to go through that, not absorb, but there's a word that I'm looking for here. Embrace the qualities of Pisces, which is the spiritualization of everything.
Yeah.
You know, the world
Integrate,
savior,
yes.
forgiveness, universal consciousness, you know, not just me, but more a wider, a more open consciousness. I think that's what he means here, that they've got to go through that period of openness to
Yes,
something
and
greater.
integrate some kind of integration.
Yes, yes. So that then when Christ comes in the sign of Aries, then they will be able to recognize him as the Messiah, that he did come not to save just the Jewish race, but to save the whole world. To bring about the new order, to establish that in the world, so that he can start working out in the next 2,500 years. And as DK says, otherwise they will repeat that ancient sin. They will still be stagnating at the same point of aggression and cruelty and conquest and material possessions, etc., etc. Because the sign Pisces, sorry, I just finished my thought.
Yes,
The
yes.
sign Jupiter rules Jupiter and Neptune, and Jupiter is all about love, right? Ray 2. Neptune is this surrendering. So it's the surrendering to the universe, is surrendering to the higher form of life. So this is what DK means, that they have to go through that, the sign Pisces. Sorry, Anna.
No,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
it's for me, sorry. I would like to say that as I see at the moment, when where so many so important things happen, that the role of the third parties, I mean the countries that are not implicated in that conflict, play a very, very, very important role.
Absolutely.
They bring together and try to negotiate and try to find a let's say neutral line, and try to stand for the rights of both parties. I think it's impossible for the two parties involved to be able to to think clearly, but the third parties that act as negotiators have a very, very, very important role. And we see that with exchange of those people who have been kidnapped.
Yes.
And how just finally there was a ceasing of fire for 1 day, for 2 days, but there is a ceasing of fire. Otherwise, it was 50 days war and war and war.
That's
and vengeance. And I think it's very important, the role of the negotiators, the third parties.
Yep, you're quite right.
Because if there were any small group of people in either party in Jews or in Arabs that would like to be more, for example, more inclusive, they cannot at the moment because things have gone to the extremes. So the negotiators play this part to bring the best from the
two sides
together, which cannot happen without negotiation.
Absolutely.
That's right. In the development, we need these observers, right? It's the part of the observer to see what's going on and to find solutions.
Yeah.
And they are more objective. And as Anna said, because they're not involved, they are more detached from the situation, and therefore they can be more objective and see the issues more clearly.
Yes.
Yes, if no oil is involved and things like that.
Yes, I know that's the only problem with politics.
It's not really a true observer yet.
No.
It's not neutral yet, but it's on the way because people are tired of this power
of war,
games, of war, and really demand that it changes now.
Absolutely.
So this demand is in the air, and the politicians have kind of listened to that too.
Yeah, that's right. That's quite right. Yeah. So when we will make our voices heard really loud and clear, so they can't ignore us anymore. So the democracies then will just have to listen to the people.
Yes, and it's interesting that many people take this side or that side, but many people say, stop taking sides. This is not the way.
Yeah, that's right. Both sides are equally wrong, as DK pointed out in one of the slides. And that it become like a vicious circle. You hurt me, I'll hurt you. Tit for tat. And that cycle needs to be broken.
I think that to take sides, it's not it's not bad. To be fanatically on one side is something bad, because I remember what we have read in Tibetan, that even the Second World War, the hierarchy took sides. She wasn't neutral.
Oh yes.
So
yes.
we have to take side, but not become fanatic and just hate the opposite side.
Yes, I think it's more taking the side of justice against injustice from higher values.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No, it should go to both sides to see where is justice here, where's injustice. And
yes.
Always both parties are involved, but somebody is this time the aggressor.
Yeah.
No, but the other one is next time the aggressor. So
yeah,
the justice and injustice, the higher values, that is taking side, and that can be more with this side down here or that side down here. But if we emphasize on the justice, on the good, which is destroyed, then it And it's a value showed for both sides. Right.
Yeah. Good valid point.
I also think there's another aspect to this, that underneath or behind the scenes of these countries, there are shadows that are aspects of the greed and the war machine that seeks to perpetuate this difficulty, whether you want to call it the Black Lodge or you would just want to call
That's
it
right.
aspects, but it's in the shadows. It's almost like the shadow aspect of the world or the nations are there. And as they get exposed, then and brought into the light, we can at least have some kind of movement to expose them and not support them. But they're behind a lot of the governments, even in the United States, the lobbying with the war machine and everyone to have rifles is so strong. Even though it's exposed, they have armies of support. So, I mean, I think like individuals have shadows and we have to work on the dweller so that we are purified. There's that piece to it as well. And sometimes the fighting in between the countries is just the outer aspect of that inner fight, whether it's behind the scenes or, like you said many times, it's been going on the mental plane.
Yes. Good point, Catherine. Good point.
Definitely a shadow government in this country. I know that.
Yes,
and maybe it's because I'm British that I have it's a little more detached and not raised in this country. But it's similar in the UK as well. They just don't have the power. They don't have the money. They don't have the influence in that country. Anyway, I enjoyed the teaching. Thank you. It's very profound.
Yeah, DK is so wise. So wise.
Yes, and I just watched yesterday Oppenheimer movie on how the hydrogen bomb was built by him and how the countries accepted what happened at the time, but actually there were people that turned on him as he started to realize what he'd created and how it had affected humanity. And there was the one place where they first tested the hydrogen bomb out in Los Alamos, to see the extent, if they could actually make a bomb, was so profound, because at that moment, the physicists started to say, this could go, amok, and it could actually just continue to work and go throughout the atmosphere, throughout the solar system. They started to recognize the genie they were unleashing. And I think that is when a lot of the solar system woke up and said, oh, they've got some kind of awareness of the power that they have. And I think that brought to the notice of a lot of other civilizations, should I say. I mean, that's my take on it. But yeah, I know that hierarchy actually, I think, approved the actual use of it. At one point, I read that in DK's teachings that they had agreed or allowed it to happen, because I'm pretty sure they have control over what would happen nuclear-wise. I don't worry about nuclear war because of that. I feel like they understand and have control of that.
Definitely, they do say that, or DK does say that not only hierarchy, but they are under Sanat Kumara's instructions. They will let it continue to develop or unfold until it comes to a certain point where Sanat Kumara says, yes, okay, enough now. It has achieved its purpose.
Yes.
Well, friends, what a great discussion. Thank you so much for your contribution, all of you. Very good, valid points that you're all, that you've put forward, and gave us food for thought. So let's keep pondering on that Jewish problem and how we can, in our own lives, resolve that humanitarian problem. So I will bid you farewell, and I will see you next week.
Thank you all.
Thank you, friends.
Nicole.
Thank you,
Thank
Nicole.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Nicole.
Great teaching
Bye.
here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.